Nigeria is currently buckling under the weight of rising debts. Last September, the Debt Management Office said the country's total public debt was over 87 trillion naira. Now, this mounting debt is raising dust on social media, begging the questions. How will Nigeria pay back? Why is Nigeria still borrowing less than 30 years after a major debt relief? And what is government using the borrowed funds for? Just Nigeria's Mercy Frank has been speaking to experts to get some answers.
At the end of the Buhari administration, the debt per capita, meaning the debt that every Nigerian was owing based on the total debt, was over 380,000 naira.
Nearly 88 trillion naira. That's what the Nigerian national debt was as of September 2023. There are indications that this figure will increase to over 100 trillion naira before June 2024.
And also the high Eurobond later in the year, the finance minister just said that in Davos, Switzerland, they have another $13 billion.
The Nigerian government is still wooing international lenders despite the warning of the Debt Management Office that Nigeria's revenue cannot support higher levels of borrowing.
The fact is that we're in a tight economic situation, so borrowing is a way out. The consideration around that is what is the money going to be used for, how is it going to be deployed, and if the things it's going to be deployed into are going to be able to generate revenue so it's sustainable, so there is a way to pay back when it is time to pay back.
History seems to be repeating itself as Nigeria is relapsing into the pre-2005 era where the country's debt burden stood at $36 billion. Then, the country was spending about $3 billion yearly to service the loans. Then President Olusegun Obasanjo and Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala secured an $18 billion debt relief agreement. Almost 20 years later, a seeming voracious appetite for debt is still holding Nigeria weak in the knee.
I think the greatest culprit of all administration in terms of borrowing was the last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. It seems to have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed and borrowed for virtually everything. So that government was the one that really brought Nigeria to its knee in terms of debt. That government alone added about 75.something% to our debt profile.
So out of every 100 naira that Nigeria earned as revenue in 2023, about 80 naira went to paying debts.
A breakdown of the national debt post the debt relief era indicates an alarming upward tick. With late President Umaru Yar'Adua, the combined debt profile rose from 2.42 trillion naira to 6.17 trillion naira in 4 years, representing a 155% increase. As former President Jonathan completed late Yar'Adua's tenure, the federal government's debt alone saw a 24.9% surge. It moved from 4.94 trillion naira to 6.17 trillion naira in 1 year. At the end of 2015, the federal government's component of the total debt increased to 9.8 trillion naira in 2015, showing a 58% increase of 3.63 trillion naira. With the Buhari administration, an analysis of consolidated debt showed that the external debt increased by 291%, while domestic debt grew by 86% in 6 years, meaning the cumulative debt profile rose to 87.91 trillion naira. With the current administration at 8 months, there are borrowing plans on the way.
Now, what they just eyeing is loan that they will use to beef off the exchange rate, especially in the area of liquidity, to improve liquidity so that they can stabilize the exchange rate. That's what they are exactly looking for at the moment.
One question on the lips of many Nigerians is, where did all the trillions of naira go?
If you invest in education, it comes back to you, right? If you invest in buying cars for senators or things like that, there's no additional value. Once you drive it out of the car lot, it depreciates immediately. So it's a function of choices.
This trend comes with worrying consequences.
Major concern is sustainability, ability to pay back. Are we selling our children's future?
Social media is awash with many Nigerians airing their grievances over government's move to borrow more money.
The government actually needs to borrow so that we don't get taxed more.
Some tough decisions need to be made. The fact is that debt is a major option in that situation.
We have the wherewithal to improve our revenue. Yes, we do have the wherewithal to increase our revenue. But have we been able to do that? I think that's another question altogether.
4 months after his swearing in, President Bola Tinubu pledged to break the vicious cycle of over-reliance on borrowing. Many Nigerians think this is rushing headfirst towards an unknown future.
First, we're trying to redefine for Nigeria what should be the appropriate benchmarks and thresholds that is suitable for our circumstances and that takes into account the fact that we can borrow at near 0% like, say, the US or Japan. The second thing is, what can we do to expand our tax base so that we can have more revenue? And we're targeting to increase our tax to GDP ratio from around 10% now to about 18% within the next 2 to 3 years.
One of the arguments put forward for sustained borrowing is that the Nigerian government has not surpassed its self-imposed threshold of 40% debt to GDP. But financial experts beg to differ while preferring viable solutions.
Unofficially, taxes and levies are far more than 200. In fact, for manufacturers alone in one of the states, manufacturers alone pay 197 taxes and levies. So you're then surprised that we don't have industries, manufacturers are closing down, small businesses start today, 3 in 5 is dead within 2 to 3 years. There's no rocket science to why businesses cannot thrive. We're also going to the governors forum. We're saying to them, let's start with you suspending, we call them nuisance taxes.
Let the electricity sector be strengthened. Let the road network be better. All these things have value-adding benefits for us in the medium to long term, even though they are painful in the short term.
Look at the non-oil sector. See how they can begin to attract effects into the economy. See how you can use your tax to grow the economy by inviting the big players to come in here, enjoy tax holiday while they bring in their fund. See how you can begin to attract foreign direct investment again all over, because they seem to be non-existent. Portfolio investment is just less than 5% now. So all these need to come in, and then the most of all is think about how you can attract Nigeria in the diaspora.
Nigeria is a cat with 9 lives. I think that there are a lot of ways to avoid a default. We have a massive balance sheet, we have assets.
While Nigeria seems to be walking on the tightrope, the consensus is that with the right policies, accountable spending by public office holders, and cooperative tax-paying citizens, the country can upgrade from a cap-in-hand nation to becoming a lender. Mercy Frank, Gist Nigeria.
Interesting perspectives there. Should Nigeria continue to borrow to fund projects? Let's have your take on X at Gist Nigeria TV. Go there and join the conversation.